Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about the art and science of a good argument. What's the difference between making a real point and just making noise? We're going to break down how to build arguments that actually lead somewhere, not just to a shouting match.
I mean, you've been there, right? You're stuck in one of those discussions that just goes around and around in circles. Everybody gets frustrated, nothing actually gets solved, and you walk away feeling like you were just talking to a brick wall.
Okay, so take a look at this. This is a perfect example of one of those dead-end arguments. It's a classic logical trap, and it's called the no True Scotsman fallacy. What happens is, when you give a perfect counterexample, like, hey, my friend Angus is a Scotsman and he does use sugar, the other person just moves the goalposts. Suddenly, it's not about being a Scotsman anymore, it's about being a true Scotsman. It's a way to just invent a rule to avoid being wrong, and it just shuts the whole conversation down.
So what if there was a better way? What if we could actually build arguments that work? Arguments that are clear, logical, and actually get us somewhere productive. Well, to do that, we've got to get back to basics and really understand what an argument even is. So let's break it down. Let's look at its anatomy.
See, argumentation isn't just about winning a fight or being the loudest person in the room. It's actually a process, a way of getting closer to the truth. I mean, think about it. It's the engine that drives science forward, it's the absolute foundation of our legal system, and really, it's how we solve disagreements in our day-to-day lives.
And at its core, really, every solid argument is built from just three simple parts. You've got your premises. That's your starting point, right? The stuff you both agree on. Then there's the reasoning. That's the logical path you take. And that path leads you to the conclusion, which is your destination. It's that simple. A starting point, a path, and an endpoint.
Okay, so that's the basic structure. But how does this actually play out in the real world? Well, to build arguments that are truly rock solid, we can turn to this amazing framework from a philosopher named Toulmin. You can think of it like a toolkit, something you can use to build your own arguments and to take apart someone else's.
And what made Toulmin so brilliant was that he wasn't stuck in some ivory tower thinking about abstract logic. Nope, he was interested in how real people in the real world, in a courtroom or a political debate or just talking over coffee, how they actually back up what they're saying. His whole model is all about being practical.
All right, so his model kicks off with three essential pieces. First up is the claim. That's just your main point, what you're trying to prove. Simple enough. Then you have the ground. That's your evidence, the because part of your argument. But here's the magic ingredient, the warrant. The warrant is the hidden link, the unspoken rule that connects your evidence to your claim. It's the bridge that makes the whole thing stand up. Without it, you just have two separate ideas.
But it doesn't stop there. Toulmin's model has these awesome add-ons that take your argument from good to great. So let's say someone questions your warrant, your connecting bridge. That's when you bring in the backing, which is basically evidence for your evidence. Then, a really strong argument will also have a rebuttal. That's where you get ahead of the game and acknowledge the exceptions, the unless scenarios. And finally, you've got the qualifier. This adds a bit of nuance, showing how certain you are. Are we talking certainly, or probably, or maybe?
Okay, so once you get this framework in your head, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses. But you'll also start to notice something else. Not all arguments are trying to do the same thing. The why behind the argument, the context, completely changes the game. Seriously, think about the last argument you were in. What was the real goal? Were you trying to persuade someone and find common ground? Were you negotiating a deal? Or, and be honest, were you in what's called an Eristic Dialogue, where the only thing that matters is winning? That's what you see in politics a lot. But the most productive kind, the one we should all aim for more, is inquiry. That's where you're both working together to find the truth. Knowing which of these you're in, that's the secret to turning a fight into a real conversation.
And it's not just the goal. The rules of the game change depending on where you are, right? The kind of evidence a lawyer needs to win a case in court is totally different from what a scientist needs to publish a paper. And that's different from the evidence you'd use to convince your friend that the ending of that TV show was actually brilliant. Context really is everything.
So, here's the big takeaway. Understanding all this stuff about argumentation theory, it's not just some boring academic thing. It's actually empowering. It gives you a choice, a real choice in how you show up to a disagreement. You can go down that heuristic path, where the other person is just an opponent you have to beat.
Or you can choose the path of inquiry, where that same person becomes a partner, a collaborator in figuring things out together. One way leads to more fighting, the other leads to real learning and understanding.
And that right there is the heart of it all. A truly good argument isn't a weapon you use to crush someone. It's a tool for discovery. It's how you sharpen your own thinking, how you start to see things from another angle, and how we can, together, get a little closer to what's real. It completely reframes disagreement, not as a threat, but as an opportunity. So that's really the choice this whole framework gives you. When you get how an argument is built, you can choose to build a bridge instead of another wall. So the next time you're in a debate, just stop and ask yourself that one question. Am I here to make a point, or am I just making noise? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.